When you think of all-time Mario games, what pops into your head? I can think of a few off the top. Super Mario Bros., Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, New Super Mario Bros., Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, Super Mario Odyssey. Not only are those some of the more popular picks, but they are contenders for good reason. However, my pick for the all-time greatest Mario game originates on the Wii, released in 2007. A title that has the best story, the best controls, the best music, and so many more aspects I would call great. Super Mario Galaxy is a title that I discovered when I was a wee little child. You see what I did there? Wee. Back when my older cousins owned all three 3D Mario games at the time. Super Mario 64 is the game that I still play today since it is super fun to speedrun.
Hey guys, what's up? My name is
Super Mario Sunshine, despite its jank, is my first ever video game. Therefore, I have a soft spot for it. But the final one stands out to me so much that I wanted to make a video about it for the longest time. And this video is the result. Hi everyone, my name is Brandon, and today I will tell you why Super Mario Galaxy is not only the greatest Mario game of all time, but my favorite game of all time. I hope you enjoy. Hey you! I've got a question for you. How many bad soundtracks does Mario Galaxy have? If you guess 0, you're correct! You want to know what else has a 0 in its title? The sponsor of today's video, Zenless Zone Zero. Zenless is an action RPG set in a post-apocalyptic world developed by Hoyoverse, who developed games such as Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. And since it's by Hoyoverse, you should expect some quality. You play as a proxy, set in the city of New Eridu, battling against the enemies within spaces known as Hollows. So how do you defend the city against these guys? Well, you can create and build a team of characters you either think will grant you the most battles won, or characters that you want to have fun with, which is a lot of characters that will grant you the most battles won. And there are lots of characters that you will like, such as Lycaon, Kaleda, and Corrin. Players engage in extra fun combat, and hey, it's real-time open-world combat, just like another Hoyoverse game that I regularly play. If you want to play Zenless Zone Zero for yourself, then be sure to use my link in the description to download the game for free, and use code ZenlessGift to grant yourself some in-game currency. Thank you so much to Zenless Zone Zero for sponsoring this video. Now let's talk about some Mario content. Let's start with the fact that this is one of the few Mario games that has ever taken the element of its story so much more seriously. And it's a shame because I feel like we will never get a game this beautiful and serious again. Mario is invited to Princess Peach's castle to celebrate the Star Festival. He makes his way over and the Mushroom Kingdom is attacked by Bowser once again. However, something is different. The atmosphere feels ominously serious. Unlike the other times when Bowser abducts Peach, say through the cheesy dialogue of 64, the cheesier dialogue of Sunshine,
Mario! How dare you disturb my family vacation?
or the comical cutscenes in the 2D Mario games, this time, Bowser just abducts Princess Peach, no holds barred. He summons a UFO to lift Peach's castle from the ground and carries it to the center of the universe. Now, before I play the cutscene of when the castle is abducted, I'm going to play some other in-game cutscenes of when Peach is kidnapped, and I want you to pay attention to the music. Not really that serious sounding. These sound, for a lack of a better term, wacky. Sunshine kind of gets there, but not quite. Now, let's compare these to Galaxy. It's dramatic, it's astounding, but most importantly, it conveys a serious tone for the rest of the game to follow. Mario is now lost in outer space. That is, until little Luma floats over to him on a distant planet. Welcome to Gateway Galaxy. This level teaches you the basic mechanics of the game you're playing. You are then introduced to Rosalina, who grants you the ability to spin, which serves as a fundamental control piece of this game. Throughout the game, Mario has to retrieve Power Stars and Grand Stars to power the Comet Observatory, the spaceship and in-game starting hub. You navigate to different galaxies by pointing your Wiimote, or in 3D All-Stars your gyroscope controller, to the Pole Star, and it's time for you to go. You'll have run-ins with several bosses, including Bowser. You keep at defeating Bowser's forces until you reach the center of the universe. When you make your way to Peach's castle, the castle is already controlled by Bowser. And you know this because of how ominously the flag waves above the castle. After defeating Bowser for the final time, you find that the galaxy he is creating gives birth to a black hole and the Lumas sacrifice themselves to neutralize it. Rosalina appears before you and tells you that the universe has started a new cycle, with the newborn galaxy being seen in the distance upon Mario reawakening.
Welcome, new galaxy!
If you manage to put in the time to collect 120 Power Stars, an emotional cutscene will play where Rosalina will personally thank the player and promises to watch over them from the cosmos. She bids farewell and flies away on the Comet Observatory turned spaceship to return 100 years later for the next Star Festival. But wait, that Luma that's been with you all adventure is revealed to still be alive. What are they doing all by themselves though? It looks around as if thinking, where did everyone else go? And on that cliffhanger is the story of Super Mario Galaxy.
Super Luigi Galaxy!
Holy shit, you get to play as Luigi! Excuse me. Let's get to the controls. Mario in this game is pretty slow, but I believe this is because the levels are rather small and linear, and don't have a lot of space to explore. But for me, this is fine. You can triple jump, you can long jump, you can backflip, you can swim beautifully, you can collect and shoot the in-game currency, the star bits, and of course, you can use the previously mentioned motion-controlled spin attack offensively or defensively, and this can also change depending on what power-ups you use or what terrain you're on. Whether it's the classic Fire Flower or the new Boo Mushroom, these power-ups are all extra fun to use and control. And if there is a power-up that you'd rather not use, such as the infamous Spring Mushroom, you can always opt to not use it. If you're on ice, then skate like a ballerina. Trust me, you'll never see Mario look so elegant ever again. As mentioned before, collecting 120 power stars as Mario allows you to play as Luigi, though he comes with a few differences of his own. He can jump higher and run faster, but he loses air when spinning underwater. But the biggest deal breaker for me is that his overall ground traction is significantly worse, and that he comes to a slippery stop whenever he stops moving. So I usually choose to play as Mario. Going back to the controls, they often correspond with a galaxy's design. Koichi Hayashida was responsible for the level design, and his design philosophy behind most of the galaxies is that they introduce a mechanic essential to the galaxy, then a twist sometime after, and then give you a final test to see if you've mastered the mechanic. I like to call this design philosophy phasing. Let's use Space Junk Galaxy's Kamella's airship attack as an example. The first phase is understanding the shell throwing mechanic. So your targets are chests, a few Goombas, and Magic Koopa. One of the chests contains a launch star, which is required to pass the first phase. The second phase is a twist, which requires Mario to use the shells to his advantage against the fire-spitting enemies blocking the way. The final phase is Kamella, a test to see if you've mastered the shell throwing mechanic. See how beautiful these levels are designed? They allow the player to learn the mechanic sufficiently enough to utilize it for the current level as well as other levels ahead, such as the Bowser Jr. fight. Now that we're on the topic of level design, let's go more in depth. The sphere technology from the Super Mario 128 tech demo is utilized to full effect here, and the gravity mechanics are ridiculous. It may take some time to get used to, but I assure you, you will get used to it. These levels have fantastic pure platforming elements. For example, Sweet Sweet Galaxy is a level that tests how good you are at jumping, Honey Hive Galaxy tests how good you are at platforming with the bee mushroom, Space Junk Galaxy tests how good you are at platforming with pole stars, and Rolling Green Galaxy is the monkey ball level that's also very fun to roll and fool around on. The previously mentioned mechanics may also appear in specific galaxies, and you are very likely to use said mechanics to progress through the levels. Bowser Jr.'s Robot Reactor teaches you how to exploit bullet bills, which will later appear like in Battle Rock Galaxy. Ghostly Galaxy teaches you how to exploit boos and bomb boos, and while they don't appear too often elsewhere, knowing that shining a light on regular boos makes them disappear is very handy. Toy Time Galaxy shows you how to use your spin to unscrew, screws, which will be utilized for the Mecha Bowser boss coming later in the first level. Oh right, Bowser. I love the level design in all of Galaxy, but the level design of the Bowser levels especially makes lots of players feel extremely unwelcome, and I think that's a good thing. Whenever I think of Bowser in most other Mario games, I think of him saying, "Come at me if you dare," like a comical villain. Here, on the other hand, he is actively trying to prevent you from getting to him, as if he is saying, "I will kill you," like a power-hungry and selfish tyrant. If you want other testimonies, here are two in particular.
I feel like this level actively wants me to die, which I guess for a Bowser level is good design. Just, I don't know how they made me feel so just unwelcome here is the right word.
This is probably the one star that best exemplifies Bowser wanting you dead. I mean, look at this.
I even like the subtleness of star bits. Here's a quote from Bowser. "You finally made it, just in time for me to stomp you into space bits." He clearly acknowledges the existence and importance of star bits, but doesn't even know what exactly they're called, let alone what they are for. It's a small detail, but for some reason I love it so much. I also think that the difficulty for these levels is just right. It's not too easy, but it's not too hard either. Of course, if you want a slight challenge, there are Prankster Comets, which feature harder versions of previous levels. Some of them, like the Speedy and Cosmic Comets, are pretty easy, while others, like some Fast Foe and Daredevil Comets especially, can be really hard. One Daredevil Comet level in particular that I want to point out is Melty Molten Galaxy's Lava-Spired Daredevil run. In my opinion, the hardest star in the game. Now, really quick, to compare, Super Mario Galaxy 2's hardest star is uncontroversially Grandmaster Galaxy's The Perfect Run, one of the hardest Mario levels period. I've heard some people say that Lava-Spired Daredevil run is basically the perfect run in Galaxy 1. I understand the comparisons, such as the obvious one hit equals death mechanic, playing through the entirety of the level with a few differences, etc, etc. I honestly welcome this challenge, and if I went back to my residence in Japan and booted up my Wii, I think this would be the first level I'd try to beat again. And just so you know, the music of the Speedy and Daredevil comments are mwah, so beautifully anxiety-inducing. In fact, now that I mentioned music, let's talk about it. Galaxy is one of the few Mario games whose music has an orchestral score, and while Koji Kondo orchestrated 4 of the game's tracks, the name to truly thank for the soundtrack is Mahito Yokota, who orchestrated the other 77. Originally, Yokota composed music in a Latin American style, but Kondo denied his initial submissions, stating that it was no good. Yokota consulted Shigeru Miyamoto about which genre of music might work for the game. Out of the choices of an orchestral piece, pop piece, and a mix of the two, Miyamoto ultimately settled on the orchestral piece. Yokota had concerns about whether or not orchestral music would fit with Galaxy, but went through with it after thinking it would make the game's scale seem more epic. And thank God he did go through with that. The soundtrack is, without exaggeration, epic, thanks to Kondo, Yokota, and the 50-person symphony orchestra creating some of the Mario series' most iconic tracks. I am of the firm opinion that Super Mario Galaxy has the best video game music in all of gaming, without question. But before I go deeper into why I think that is the case, I do want to quickly talk about how dynamic the music is when it comes to interaction with certain things in the game. For example, depending on the music of the level playing, unveiling a coin or using a launch star will sound different. And it won't even sound exactly the same all the time. I think stuff like this just goes to show how truly in-depth this game is when it comes to music, and why I get so hooked playing through the levels of this game. The poster child for Mario Galaxy's soundtrack is, without a doubt, Gusty Garden Galaxy, which then went on to be a staple soundtrack in the Mario series as a whole. There's a sense of adventure surrounded by audio serotonin when listening to this track, almost unnecessarily so, yet it's welcomed, as a plumber floats around the atmosphere holding onto floral fluffs traveling from one planet to the next. Its melody is even reused in this game via the Purple Coins theme, and that's just one of the tracks. There are several other soundtracks in this game that I want to talk about, because the music is so good. In fact, might as well do it now. Rosalina in the Observatory is one of the few tracks made by Koji Kondo, and is a beautiful analogy for the game as a whole. As you progress through the game, the track changes from a soothing lullaby-esque theme that one might hear in the innocent comforts of their childhood home, to a professional, almost royal-sounding piece that you might hear at, say, a wedding. To put it simply, it's so happy-sounding. This waltz of a soundtrack is a musical marvel to behold, and I might unironically play this if I get married. Huge if, by the way. Speaking of waltzes, Waltz of the Booze is a haunting track with a creepy atmosphere, but as the track progresses, it sounds almost depressing, like a tragedy occurred in the galaxy you are in. Fun fact, did you know that the first 4 notes of the track spell the word dead? Have a listen. It's very clever design and music, and I wish more tracks incorporated Easter eggs like this. Going from a creepy atmosphere to calm again, we have one of my favorite tracks, Space Junk Galaxy. This track is an excellent encapsulation of the loneliness of space. The piano emphasizes the beauty and slight intimidation of the journey into space. Somewhere in the track, the instruments start to respond to each other, which may be an analogy to sending a signal into outer space and receiving a response. One other thing I've noticed is that the note pattern in Space Junk Galaxy is somewhat similar to Gateway Galaxy's theme. And now that we're on Gateway Galaxy, this theme is fitting since it is a simple composition, which ties into this being the tutorial level. You're just learning how to play the game, and the Star Bunnies are teaching you the mechanics of the game for the journey up ahead. Even without the game in mind, it's just a joy to listen to. A serene track that I could listen to when looking up in the sky to see the stars. It's also just very nostalgic. Speaking of nostalgia, we turn from calm to dramatic with the Fiery Stronghold, and you notice something? This is a rearrangement of Koopa's Road from Mario 64. In a way, this is a remaster, and an ominous one at that. I personally think it sounds like you're trespassing the villain's lair, taking the guarded artifact for yourself. I'd also like to think that this theme serves as a metaphor for how, according to the originator himself,
while every Mario game is a classic, in one sense, this is the first worthy successor to Super Mario 64.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of one man invading the center of the universe of a space military and its conquered castle. You feel the tension that is present throughout this theme. Musically speaking, the time signature goes all over the place, from 4x4 to 5x4 to 3x4 before settling back into 4x4 before looping. The Galaxy Reactor truly does sound like a theme that emphasizes Mario going through hell and back to get to the princess, and it's finally going to pay off. And it's kind of fitting for this level too, since this level can be pretty nuts to play through. But Mario's journey is almost over. There's just one last obstacle in his way, that being Bowser and his Galaxy Reactor. The last few tracks I'll quickly talk about are about Bowser and Bowser Jr.'s boss themes. Let's go over Bowser Jr.'s first. In a series where Bowser Jr. is presented as a baby brat who sees Peach as his mama, this track emphasizes the whole military space armada theme that the game was hinting towards. I also love the strings in this track, conveying a sense of power that is not to be trifled with. They also transition into the track's loop points seamlessly. Nothing else works for me. This is just Bowser Jr.'s theme for me in a nutshell. Bowser's regular boss theme is where I believe the live orchestra truly shines. In a way, this theme is perfect for the inevitable terror that is Bowser, while also fitting the serious tone that the game is conveying to the player. This theme is intense, and I love it. When Bowser roars and changes the gravity, you can just feel the chill going down your spine. It's like you are pitted in an arena with a demonic beast, and the only way to get out of it is to take the beast down. Even when the beast is weakened, the choir comes in to emphasize that the battle is not over. An extra dramatic theme, though the choir singing soap several times throughout the track makes it slightly comical at times. Finally, and fittingly, we end things off with Bowser's final boss track, which is a mix of electronic and orchestral music. Yokota notably describes this theme as a piece that doesn't express the fear of Bowser, but rather Mario's determination to win. This isn't a battle where you make Bowser spell his own doom. This isn't a battle where you can spin his tail into bombs. No, this is a 1v1 duel between the plumber of the Mushroom Kingdom and the invader and soon-to-be ruler of the universe. And reminder, this is a Mario soundtrack. This is in a Mario game. A climactic finisher for what I consider the greatest video game music in all of gaming. And have you noticed that the tracks that I've listed all connect so well together? They intertwine so perfectly with each other. Obviously, there are more tracks I could have talked about, such as Battle Rock Galaxy, Melty Molten Galaxy, Purple Comet, Good Egg Galaxy, Star Festival, Overture, Buoy Base Galaxy, and so on. But we don't have all day. So if you ever have time, please listen to the entire soundtrack. Trust me, you will not regret it. From the complex orchestration of the Comet Observatory theme to the soft solo music box melody that is Rosalina's storybook theme, the music in this game is a masterpiece, a showcase of sheer beauty. And speaking of Rosalina, I decided to dedicate this section to her. Rosalina is a wise and mature princess with a depressing backstory, hidden in the library of the Comet Observatory. Director of Mario Galaxy Yoshiaki Koizumi is the author of Rosalina's storybook, who wrote the story extra late at night so no one would know what was in it. When presenting it to Shigeru Miyamoto, he was extremely surprised about the result. Unfortunately, this didn't carry over into Mario Galaxy 2, since Miyamoto not only decided to forego Galaxy's serious story, but also retcon it, lightening the tone of story with no mention of Rosalina's storybook anywhere. And now that we're on the topic of the storybook, I'll summarize it for everyone. Chapter 1, Rosalina meets an apricot-colored Luma lost trying to find their mother. Chapter 2, forgetting to pack water, Rosalina tries the Luma's favorite food, Starbits. Chapter 3, Rosalina and the Luma find and stay on an icy comet to search for Luma's mother. Chapter 4, Rosalina dreams about her mother, who bears a vague resemblance to Princess Peach, and starts crying when she wakes up. Chapter 5, Rosalina and the Luma build what will become the Comet Observatory, while the former feels slightly homesick about her home planet. Chapter 6, several Lumas of different colors appear from a smaller planet, and Rosalina would take them all in under her care. Chapter 7, Rosalina uses her father's telescope to peer back at her home planet, but cries about wanting to go home. Chapter 8, Luma transforms into a comet, and the rest of the Lumas talk about how they wish to transform into something new, comforting Rosalina in her sadness. Chapter 9, Rosalina cements herself as the guardian of all the Lumas, and wishes to return to Earth every 100 years, which would later give rise to the Star Festival celebration. Now, what's so special about this storybook? In my opinion, it is the simple fact that Rosalina is going through a coming-of-age moment. She matures into someone with a very important role, choosing to make someone else happy while foregoing her own happiness. The more she explores space, the more homesick and unhappy she feels. It comes to a breaking point when we reach Chapter 7, the telescope. Now, I mentioned that Rosalina was crying about wanting to go home, but there's actually another reason why she was crying, and I'll read it from the storybook itself. I want to go home. I want to go home right now. The girl burst into tears, and the Lumas didn't know what to do. I want to go home. I want to go back to my house by the hill. I want to see my mother. The girl was shouting now, her face wet with tears. But I know she's not there. I knew all along that she wasn't out there in the sky, because she's sleeping under the tree on the hill. The girl's cries echoed through the stars, and a hush fell over the area. In what would usually be considered a lighthearted children's book by even the author himself, in a series where losing a life from falling into lava to bumping into an enemy is par for the course, in a game where the damsel in distress theme was taken to 11, in a game where the main protagonist is this happy-go-lucky plumber who all he usually says is wahoo, knowing that there is a character who has been dead for hundreds, if not maybe close to 1,000 years, is unnerving. The metaphor of sleeping under the tree on the hill is a metaphorical stab through the chest, and it never fails to make me break into my own tears when reading this part. And it makes you think, what happened to Rosalina's mother? The answer is just as depressing as the question itself. I don't think we'll ever know. I think this moment here is what allowed us to sympathize with Rosalina for a bit. She's been trying to process her mother's death, and while in her grief, she found the Lumas. While trying to find the Luma's mother, It sounds like she made the choice to forget her family until looking back at her home planet. After Chapter 7, though, the Lumas comfort her in her sorrow and allow her to come to terms with her mother's death. She's able to move past that sadness and form a new family with the Lumas. I believe sometime after this story happened, Rosalina wrote this story. Her memories, her experiences, her grief were all recorded into what was disguised as a children's storybook. It's demented in a way. And it's because of the fact that Rosalina's storybook exists that I can also comfortably make the claim that Rosalina never cried again. Remember Chapter 4, The Dream? Rosalina's mother said this: "I will turn into a star in the clouds and wait for your tears to dry." I'd like to think of this as Rosalina's mother's final words before she passed away. And I'd like to think that's exactly what she did. Spiritually, Rosalina's mother was probably with her whenever she was in grief over her mother's death. But after recording this in her storybook, it's there where you realize Rosalina didn't need her mother anymore. Because after all, her tears have already dried up. How do I put it into words? Super Mario Galaxy is overall celebrated as one of the greatest games ever, receiving almost unanimous praise from fans alike. But why is this game celebrated as such though? I think the answer is simple. The game possesses so much more heart than anyone can comprehend. No other game can compare to the nostalgic feels I get from playing or watching others play this game. To me, it is the perfect blend of storytelling, gameplay, and music that makes me love Galaxy so much. It has a special place in my heart as my favorite game ever, and no other game will be able to replicate that. While Pokemon might be my favorite overall game series, no Pokemon game will ever capture my heart's grasp like Super Mario Galaxy did all those years ago. Just recently, Super Mario Galaxy celebrated its 17th anniversary. Oh my god, Super Mario Galaxy celebrated its 17th anniversary, and I will have just lived through 22 years of my life. While the Wii is now considered a fossil of game consoles to come, Galaxy is a timeless classic that I would kill to revisit. Between the music, gameplay, story, and lore, Galaxy is still hailed as a masterpiece and one of the greatest video games ever. To quote Scott the Woz, this right here is my favorite game of all time. Happy 17th anniversary, Super Mario Galaxy. Here's to 17 more.